Well, I said I was going to try to do one of these on a monthly basis. I am really squeaking it in here at the very end of the month. It has been so crazy this month. I really had thought I would get this done at the top of the month, but here we are at the bottom of the month, and that's just the way it's going to have to be. I will see you on the other side. Well, hello, and welcome to this episode of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I am a knitter and a crocheter, a sometimes designer, and every month I try to come to this little corner of YouTube to share what I've been working on and to give you all some ideas on how you can take your love of crafting and do a little good in the world. You can find me on social media as Gary Knits over on Bluesky and as Gary Knits and Rides on Ravelry. I will link here at this QR code to the show notes, which are listed down below, where I will make links for everything that I talk about in this episode. And you can scan that QR code if you're not watching this on your mobile device, and then it'll take you right to the Google Doc with all of the links. I hope you're doing well. Thoughts and prayers for those of you sitting in the northeastern part of the U.S. right now, and this giant blizzard is coming to make what has already been a really cold and snowy winter for you all even worse. So I hope that everyone's hunkered down with some cozy knitting and TV watching. The Olympics, I think the closing ceremonies maybe tonight. I'm filming this on Sunday, the 22nd. Hopefully we'll get this out sometime on Monday. So I hope you've been enjoying the Olympics, which we have been off and on. I've seen a little bit of everything. I haven't really focused too much on one particular thing, although my husband Roy seems to be into the figure skating, so we've watched a fair bit of that. Anyway, I hope you are warm and cozy wherever you are. We've escaped the rain here, and we have a nice sunny day, which is fantastic. But as I mentioned up at the top, it has been a wild few weeks, month, I guess, even at this point. I had really hoped to get an episode filmed and out kind of just as the Destash was starting, which was February 1st, right? I believe that was when we started that. Because I knew that I had 2 weeks on the road and nothing was going to get done in the middle of the month, and I was going to land, come back just as the Destash was closing, and that was going to occupy me for almost 100% of a week, and here we are. And unfortunately there was a family thing that came up, nothing particularly serious, but you never like to get that 5 o'clock in the morning call that someone's in the emergency room. Luckily everything's fine, but it did pull me out of commission for a little over a day to go spend some time with my mom and dad, and then immediately had to get on a plane, so I didn't get a chance to film. So that's just the way things happen sometimes. Like I said, nothing terrible, so we're all thankful for that. But then I hit the road for 2 weeks. I was in San Francisco for work, but also the whole 2 weeks was a combination of like work and fun. So it was kind of it didn't feel like such a death march as sometimes these multiple legged trips kind of feel like when you're just like moving from one conference room to hotel to airport to hotel to et cetera. But I was able to mix in some fun along the way and hang out with some friends. So I was in San Francisco, came back home, turned right around and went to New York. Got to see a bunch of friends. It was freezing cold in New York. It was during that well, New York I think has had like 30 days below freezing. But we were there Super Bowl weekend. Nothing related to the Super Bowl, but it was a couple of days where the wind chill was like negative 16, 15, which were really cold. But I like getting back to the East Coast during the winter, just for a taste. And I never have minded the cold weather, but that was really really cold. But we had a great trip. Got to see a bunch of friends. Got to see a show. So we were going back partly for the New York City Center Encores series. We have held onto our subscription all these years out here, and we try to make it back to at least a couple of those shows each year. And it was great because it was kind of what the Encore series was originally designed to do, which was to mount kind of almost concert productions of old shows that probably would never get produced again. And there's been some mission creep over the years. One, also that we're getting older, and so things that I don't think of as being like old shows that will never get revived are maybe old shows that will never get revived. When they first started, it was a lot of shows from like the 30s and 40s, and even some from like the teens and 20s. And they've done a lot more recent shows more recently. One, I think, to fill seats because those are going to be more popular. But anyway, this one was sort of more in line with the original mission. They were doing a production of High Spirits, which is a musical adaptation of the Noel Coward play Blithe Spirit. I think it was like 1964. It was originally produced and has not been put on Broadway since then. But they always get a great cast. So it was like Andrea Martin and Philippa Sue from Hamilton and Stephen Pasquale and is it Christina or Christina? I think Christina Lank or Katarina Lank, who won the Tony for The Band's Visit. It was also in the recent sort of gender swapping Company. So a great cast. The show was kind of slight, but it was fun, and it's always great to see a show that you've never seen before, and they have a great, big orchestra, so it's always fun. So that was cool. And then escaped the cold of New York. I had to the rain of Lisbon. I had a couple of meetings in Lisbon, and where New York's been freezing for 30 days, Portugal, I think, and Lisbon in particular, have had like 30 days of rain, and there's flooding in the country that's like, I think there's been like 16 fatalities. But it had been like 22 years since I'd been to Lisbon, and even then I kind of just went kind of like this just for a couple of days on my way to another meeting. But this time I was there supposed to be there for less than 48 hours. And the traveling that way, the jet lag is just terrible. So the first day it was like, I made it to the meeting I had to get to, and then like slept. And then there was a snafu, and I, with one of the meetings I had, that ended up meaning that I had to stay for a couple of extra days. So I had 2 extra days in Lisbon, but I didn't have anything particular to do, and the kind of jet lag was wearing off. So I got to explore a little bit the city. It's really a lovely city. It was also kind of off season a bit. So one, the hotel was able to accommodate me for 2 extra days, but at a pretty good price. But also there's just like fewer tourists and things around. And I know that, Lisbon, like Barcelona and some other, much of Europe, has sort of had this like massive increase in tourism that has kind of strained local resources and, kind of given some locals a bad taste in their mouth in terms of the number of people. But there weren't a ton of tourists around, and it's just a really charming city. So I enjoyed my 2 extra days. I got to go to a local yarn store thanks to the recommendation of Mateus, I'll link down below, who's a young guy in Portugal, knitter. He's working on this amazing lemon sweater. Anyway, but he recommended this yarn store. We'll get into that in a bit, but it was really fun. And then I just got to have some really great food, and the snafu with my meeting got sorted out. Then got that done, got back home, and then, as I said, the Destash ended, and that has been occupying me for the last week. So it's been kind of a whirlwind. I think I'm finally back on the right time zone, and I do have one quick trip in March, but I think that's it, and hopefully can kind of get back on the routine of going to the gym and all that stuff. So it's been a whirlwind, but I'm glad to be home and have some fun stuff coming up. With today, we're going to see Dudamel at the LA Philharmonic conduct this Beethoven. It's called Missa Solemna. It's a mass with a big choral piece to it, so that should be fun. We've got some theater coming up, so I'm glad to be home. Had a great visit with friends and exploring a little bit of a new-ish or long since visited city, so that was fun. Really fun. Just the other day, Rachel from Pearls and Polish podcast, who I've mentioned several times before, she was visiting her sister who lives down here in Southern California. She's up in outside of Sacramento, and she was like, "Oh, I'm going to be in town, and we're kind of going to be near you. Can we get together?" So we met up at a coffee shop. I'd never met her in person. She's had some stuff in the Destash sale. She's bought stuff in the Destash sale before. We've done sock swaps together. So it was really great to meet her and her sister in real life. And we hung out for, I don't know, an hour and a half at a coffee shop nearby. And then they were going on to have a day of adventure in the LA area. So it was really cool to meet them and hang out. It's always great to meet these people that you kind of have these online relationships with, and then you get to meet them in real life, and they just turn out to be just as awesome in real life as they are online. So that has been fun. The upside to lots of planes and sitting around in airports is there's been a decent amount of knitting gotten done. The downside is my big deadline projects. The one that I'm actively working on is now gotten to the size that I can't carry it around with me or take a whole piece of luggage up. So I've got a little bit of catch up to do, but now that I think the D-Stash is done, and we're going to talk about that in a minute when we get to Craftivism, that'll be my primary focus going forward. But I do have a couple of FOs to get to. But before we get to any of the knitting, any of the Craftivism, I have a giveaway to give away. Last time, if you remember, I was talking about starting a project for a mosaic make-along that one of my local knitting groups is doing, and I had a bunch of yarn to choose from, and I was asking folks for their suggestion on which yarn to go with, and that was your entry into the giveaway. I will reveal what happened at the when we get into WIPs, because I think it's still a WIP. But the winner of the prizes, which is this beautiful bag from Valorie Voigt, who is one of our Zoom knitters on our Tuesday night Zoom, and lives down in Bolivia, and made this bag to give away, which is really cool. It has this long extra handle that you can kind of turn into this like little bento bag kind of thing, and then so that and a skein of this beautiful yarn, which is called Bananas, from, there it is, Teal Torch Knits up in Portland. This is on her DK 7525 base. So the winner of both of those things is Carrie Brinkman-Soul, who I've already sent mail to this week because she had won some things in the D-Stash, and she also listed some things in the D-Stash. So, Carrie, I have your address. I will just plop that in the mail. No need to reach out to me, but thank you for participating in the polling. And there is going to be another giveaway, because we're just giving away things until we run out of things in the giveaway pile. So for this episode, the giveaway is going to be this skein of Desert Panda Fiber Arts It is a worsted weight called Born This Way Organized Chaos 100% Superwash Merino in all these really fun, wild colors. So, if you are interested in that, drop a comment down below on what you've been watching in terms of the Olympics. I know they're ending tonight, but what you've been watching and kind of what your highlight from watching the Olympics, this Winter Olympics season has been. And I will plop all of those comments in a random picker, and the next episode, I'll announce who the winner is. Talking about Destash and Craftivism. So just quickly on that, the Destash for Good auction is now completely done. It ran for a couple of weeks, and it was a huge success. It was the biggest one we've ever done. So I went back and looked, and I think the last one we did, which was Winter 2025, there was like 350 items. This one, there were 643 or 648 listings. So, almost double, not quite double. And we raised, and I meant to write down the exact total, but it is $12,469.56 or something like that. Almost 12,500, if not slightly over, which is fantastic. I kind of went into it hoping to get around 10. When the totals of the amount of yarn, which was or yarn and other things being sold, the retail value was like 27,000. I thought that we'd have a chance to exceed 10 just based on what we historically done. So that is amazing. It is. I may have bitten off more. Well, not more than I could chew because it's done and it was successful. But it was a lot. It was a lot more than I remember. In terms of just the quantity of yarn to deal with. I'm grateful for everyone who listed their items. Hugely grateful for the dyers that allowed me to kind of take some inventory off their hands at really good prices so that I could resell it in the auction. So thank you to everyone who participated, as a buyer, as a seller, as a dyer, as a donor. It really does take a village to make these things work, and I think it was a huge success. That money is probably tomorrow because the rest of my day is pretty busy. But the money that we raised, so that 12,000 plus, is going to be donated directly to the Community Engagement Fund of Center Rideout, which is the new cycling event in support of the Los Angeles LGBTQ Center. So it's there. It's going to be a 3-day ride. I believe it's in April. I'm not going to be able to do it this year, but maybe next year if I get my act together and start getting back on the bike and training. Even though it's only 3 days, I'm also 3 years older than the last time I did it. So, and so that money is just going to go directly to the all the different programs that the center operates. I spent a little time down there a couple months ago for the first time actually being to their campus, and was really blown away at the scope of the work that they do. So on the campus there, they house 200 people, so kind of evenly split between seniors and youth. And they provide them, food and housing and job training and education for the young people to help them get their GEDs, get them, into further education if that's what they want. But they have a whole culinary arts training program in addition to providing not just for the people who actually live on site and in around surrounding apartments, but everyone else in the community, healthcare, access to primary care physicians and HIV/AIDS treatment and education and prevention and all that stuff. So it's a huge range of services that they provide. It's the largest LGBT organization in the world, and like most other LGBT focused organizations, their funding from federal sources has been, if not completely eliminated because of the healthcare that they provide, cut dramatically. So every dollar helps, every dollar counts, and will immediately go to providing life-saving help to someone in the community. So thank you for everyone who participated in Destash this time around. Do not know if and when there will be another one. I feel like I say this maybe at the end of every one, where I'm like exhausted from having spent 40 hours this week packing up boxes, that I don't know that I can pull it off again. But we'll see down the line. I know people really enjoy the fun of it, and the fact that they're able to contribute to great causes. But it is a ton of work. So in terms of other Craftivism, I feel like I'm, because I was gone and busy with getting the Destash uploaded and then dealing with it, missed a whole lot of discourse in the community on Craftivism and what's going on specifically with ICE, and specifically in Minnesota after the murders of, the two murders of Rachel Good and Petty. But in addition to the many other murders that ICE has committed over the past year or so, but those are the ones that have gotten the most attention. There's a discussion to be had about why that is, in terms of why are we spending are we less aware of the Black and brown people that have been killed, detained, or killed in detention, or just out murdered on the street by ICE. But the wave of anger and rage sort of escalated when it was two white folks. But there has been, a big increase in activity in the knitting and crocheting community around raising funds for mutual aid, raising funds for organizations that are fighting for immigrant rights, not only in Minnesota but around the country. I think all of that is good. At the same time, there's been some frustration expressed on the part of people who have been on the front lines and working in these spaces for years and years and years, that knitting a hat is not enough, and can seem to some folks to be performative. I think there are, I don't have a lot to add on to this discussion. I think that there are points to be made on both sides. I think that, to a certain degree, much activism is performative. I think that's part of what activism is to raise awareness, and you do that by being visible, on whether you're standing on the street corner holding a sign, or whether you're knitting a red hat, whether you're blocking a ICE facility from for people coming in and out. There are it all has a performative aspect to it. But I think that those criticisms are well made, in terms of just making a hat is not enough. We need to all be doing more. I think that a lot of people are. But it is a entry point for a lot of folks. I know that the hat, the red hat, melt the ice hat sort of movement got sort of compared to the Pink Pussy Hat movement back in 2017 for the Women's March, and how there was all this effort in sort of making these hats, and then a lot of that was just all that happened for some folks. I think that's true. I think that criticism is appropriate, but by the same token, I know personally that for a lot of folks that I've gotten to know in whether it's the Indivisible movement or Sister District, which is now called States Win, the Women's March was their entry point into getting more activated. So I think I've always said, to me, I take a very holistic or wide open approach to craftivism, and people have different bandwidths at different points of time to do things and be more active or less active. And I think that everyone is, if we are moving forward, that's great. And I think the fact that the designers of the hat pattern have been able to donate a ton of money to mutual aid is all to the better. I'm going to talk about another thing that's going on right now where there's doing that, and I think it's also just opened up this discussion on where are the best places for us to be putting our efforts in, because it's, mutual aid is one spec. I think there's also an argument to be made that some of these organizations that are working in the courts are also places that you might look to be putting some effort into as well. So I think it's all been great. The discussion is helpful, I think, across the board. And I think that at the end of the day, it's all comes down to your conscience and what you feel like you are able to contribute, and if you're doing enough or not, and that's between you and your conscience. I think at the end of the day. But I did want to bring up a couple of other things. Obviously, those things continue to be ongoing, and I'm hoping that now that the Destash is behind me, that as things come up in my feed, I can be a little more proactive about jumping on and putting out a quick video. But two things I did want to bring attention to. One is an annual event called Knit for Food. It's starting It is a 24-hour knit-a-thon to raise money for different organizations dealing with hunger I believe it's primarily in the United States. And it's been going on for a couple of years. People create these sort of teams where you can, sponsor them to knit for the full day. So I'm going to drop a link down below to the general Knit for Food account. But if you know someone, or you yourself are on a team or doing Knit for Food to raise money, drop your info down in the comments and let folks know that you're participating, and hopefully we can all help and sponsor someone for that day if you're not able to participate in a full day of knitting. The other thing that I mentioned this, and this is has to do with the mutual aid surrounding folks being affected by the DHS activities. There's an auction, and I think it's called Auction for Democracy. I meant to write it down. I just have auction written in my notes. But it's an Instagram auction of all sorts of crafting items. So people have made quilts. People have made some stained glass. There are project bags. I did see something that was specifically knitting related. Someone has a kit of Brooklyn tweed yarn. But it's all being done through Instagram, kind of the way that Destash for Good used to be done, where you just bid in the comments. It started on the 21st. It's running through the 28th. There's some really beautiful items for auction, and I think they're still adding things kind of as people become aware of it. And they are raising money for various organizations, mutual aid and nonprofits, who are operating in areas that are being specifically affected by DHS and ICE activities. If you go to their profile on Instagram, they have a link to a Google Doc which lists the organizations that they will be donating the proceeds to. I'm not sure how they're picking and choosing among those, if it's each individual person for the item they've listed gets to choose, or if it's just going to split it evenly. But go check that out. There's some really beautiful things up for auction, and all for a great cause. And the last thing I wanted to mention, when I got home the other day, I had to go to the grocery store, and there were Girl Scouts outside selling Girl Scout cookies. I didn't realize that it was Girl Scout cookie season already. I think I saw somewhere that it goes through maybe March 15th. And it made me remember and look up that there is a troop in New York City, Troop 6000, and that troop was started, I think, back in 2017, specifically to serve girls who are living in the New York City shelter system. So it's a Girl Scout troop made up entirely of girls whose families are in the New York City shelter system to keep them off the streets. And they, like all or like most, I assume all Girl Scout troops do this, but most Girl Scout troops in any case sell cookies during this time of year as a fundraiser for their troops. So I'm going to link down below to Troop 6000 in New York City, and you can support those girls. I'm sure if you have Girl Scouts in your lives, you want to support them as well. But if you don't, you can either donate directly, or if you like the cookies, and who doesn't love Samoa? Those are my favorite. Or do they call them samosas now? Those and the little shortbreads I always liked. I know you can only eat a few of them because they're tasty, but maybe not the healthiest things in the world. And the other thing I would just say on the Girl Scout cookies is just a reminder to everyone that in addition to these programs such as this one, which I think is great to serve these girls in living in a difficult situation, but the Girl Scouts are openly accepting of trans kids, non-binary kids, are explicit in their acceptance and support for the LGBTQ plus communities in their troops, and so I think that is also an amazing part of the whole Girl Scouting, particularly because I don't know that Boy Scouts are quite as accepting. And the work that they do. So those are just some ideas. Again, I'm hoping that with the schedule back more in line, that I'll be able to jump on and throw up some YouTube shorts when things come across my feed, because there's been a ton of stuff recently and I just haven't had the time to sit down and do it. So that's it for Craftivism. Again, as always, if you see something, say something. If something comes across your feed, social media or otherwise, drop me a line. There's an email in the show notes down below, or you can find me on social media and just hit me up, and I will try to get a mention out for anything that you see that seems like a cool idea. So let's talk about knitting. I said I had some FOs because I've been on many planes for many hours in the last couple of weeks. So the first two are socks, which I'm very excited about. I know I mentioned that I was knitting a pair of socks for my husband. These are they. This is a colorway that you will recall maybe. I picked up at Flock Fiber Festival this last end of summer in Seattle from Ocean, Oshen Fibers. It's an MCN base, and it was dyed in for the Jaws 50th anniversary of the Jaws movie. My husband is obsessed with the Jaws movie, and so I saw it and said, I will knit you a pair of socks in that. Really beautiful yarn. I love the color. I think it turned out great. The heel is a fish lips kiss heel using some leftover woolberry yarn. My Courage Also Rises, which I used to make a pair of cabled socks whose name I now can't remember, but just recently finished this up. Actually, speaking of Rachel from Pearls and Polish, this was yarn that she gifted me as part of a sock swap a couple years ago. And I still have a little bit left, so I'm gonna. This is going to show up in heels and toes of mini socks for coming years. So, just a basic plain vanilla sock with fish lips kiss heel, 1x1 twisted rib at the top. And so now that I've shown them, he can finally wear them. He's had to sit on these for a couple weeks because I didn't want them to get lost in the drawer anywhere. The other pair of socks were for me, so this is sock number 1 out of the 12 new pair of socks that I'm trying to knit for myself this year, or finish for myself, because I'm not 100% knitting all of them. These were from a sock tube. So I knew I was going to be on planes, and that is perfect for me to grab a sock tube and say, like, I'm just going to try to bang out a pair of socks over the course of a week of traveling. Took a little bit longer than that for these, but this is Opal yarn in conjunction with KFS, which is a Japanese company. I was looking it up today, so it seems like it's a German woman living in Japan who started this yarn store company, KFS, partnered with Opal Yarn, and does a lot of collabs, and originally got into the business to raise money for victims from the earthquake tsunami in Japan from 2011, whenever that was, and just has kind of continued working in that area of Japan and raising money for various things there. But yeah, this is great. These are again, afterthought heel toes and cuffs were all I had to do here. 1x1 twisted rib as always, and this was a yak silk blend from Undercover Otter that was in my Geo Gradient Stephen West Mystery Knit Along from a couple years ago. But I've already worn them. They're super cozy. I love the patterning from this. I have a couple more skeins of this type of self-striping that has some speckles that make it look like, almost like a little Fair Isle sock. So those are the only Oh, no. This was completely unplanned, but a designer who I know through Destash, because she's done some Destash stuff in the past in this one as well, Juliana M. Knitter. She had put out a call for a test knit, and I've always wanted to do a test knit. I always feel like I can't do them because I have other projects that I'm working on that have a deadline, and typically I feel like the timeline is too short for me to continue on the things that I'm working on and also do someone's test knit. But she put out a call for testers for a DK weight colorwork cowl, and the timing just worked out perfectly. I knew I had this like 2 weeks of traveling, that I was going to have a lot of time to knit on planes, and having done some DK cowls in the past, I did that doodle cowl earlier or last year, and then I've done a couple of them and was like, that seems like something I can do. I mean, it means that I'm going to have to maybe not work on one of the other projects that I have already started, say for the Yarniacs Self-Indulgent Knit Along. I still have 2 of my 3 projects that are still on the needles, but I've got some time on that. And so the timing just worked out, and I thought I can probably get this done. I think it was like a 3-week, test knit. So I applied and got accepted, and I quickly found some yarn in stash that I thought would work out well, and it's called the Australis cowl. And like I said, it's stranded color work, 2 colors, DK weight. So I finished it up last week and finally blocked it out, and here it is. So I think, so again, this is Juliana M. Knits or Knitter. Juliana M. Knits, and on Instagram, and it was really fun. It was kind of scratched that itch of wanting to do some stranded color work. I'm still using the Norwegian knitting thimble because when I did my first color work projects a couple years ago, my tension was really tight and it puckered up, and so Sarah from Sea Change Fiber suggested that, and it really worked. I feel like now I'm having the opposite problem, where it's creating tension that's a little loose or a little inconsistent. Some of that blocked out, but it's still, I'm not 100% thrilled with the evenness of all my stitches. I still think this looks great. The yarn I use, the green, is a Magpie Fibers Swanky DK, so that's their MCN base. The color is called the Brain. It was from a Breakfast Club set that they did, 3 or 4 years ago. And then the speaking of Japan, the contrasting color is Lemon Jelly Pool. I think it's called Gem Castle, a Japanese dye, and it has, you can see in there just these. it's this pale purple. It's showing up as more sort of like gray or beige, but it's a very, very pale lavender, but it just has these little blips of specks of color in there, which I think are really really fun and gives it a little more interest than just a solid yarn. But I think she said the testing is running through, I think, the end of the month. So I think there's a few more days left in the test knit, and that she's hoping to have the pattern out at the sometime at the beginning of March. Like I said, it's a fun color work. Only a few lines of it where you have to catch floats. It's not, I would say, memorizable in terms of like you're only doing the same like 4 rows over and over again. I'm trying to think. I don't remember. I don't know that there's any line that is any line of the color work that is a repeat. So it may be each one is kind of a new line, because it's not a mirrored image top to bottom. So it kind of kept things interesting. But I might not, for that reason alone, I might not suggest it as like a very first time colorwork project, unless you're just super adventurous. I think the one that I did my first colorwork was that Casey Knits pattern. I'll pop a picture of it up here, that we did for a knit along once upon a time, and that one was more symmetrical, and so there was some repetition in the rows, and so you kind of got into a more repeatable rhythm. But this was a lot of fun, and it's a great quick. Like I said, I was working on several projects and was still able to get this done in 2 weeks. I think that if you sat down and worked on it straight through, you could get this done in a couple days pretty easily. So it's a little heavy and for Southern California, so this will probably go to the Rainbow pile for next year, as they are shutting down their collections for this year. So the Australis, Australis, Astralis, Australis cowl from Juliana M. Knits. Look out for that pattern probably in the next few weeks or so, depending on how the test net went. But I had a great time. I had no issues with the pattern at all, so I think it's very well written, charted and line by line. So if you're not a chart reader, it has the line by line instructions as well. So that was my final FO. In terms of WIPs, I mentioned for the contest that I was asking for votes in terms of yarn choices for my project that is a make-along for one of my local knitting groups. Shout out to the South Bay Drunken Knitters. If you happen to be in Southern California and need a knitting group or another knitting group, if you're in the kind of south part of the Los Angeles area, check out the South Bay Drunken Knitters on Meetup. We meet usually one evening a month at a wine bar, and then usually one Saturday morning a month at a coffee place. And then there's some other events that we kind of do throughout the year. But it's a really nice group of people. But someone in the group wanted to do a make-along for mosaic knitting. And so that's what we're doing. We started February 1st. I think it goes through some end of March or maybe early April. I chose to do the Grid Gambit, which is a bandana style cowl by Samantha Guerin, and I had picked out a bunch of different yarns from Stash to try to use, and you all voted. I think the one that I ended up choosing, the color combo I ended up choosing, also was the one that everyone chose. There were two that were very close running, but I think generally this was the one that more people liked. So I used the Treehouse Knits Underworld, which is kind of this blue, purpley blue as the main color, and then it is a spin cycle dyed in the wool. The colorway is called Truth Bomb, and that is the background color. So this is knit flat and then seamed. So I think it actually, let's see, I think it's like this. So so you seam it like this, and we'll end up like that. I'm very, very close to the end. I think I'm in the decrease section, and I counted yesterday, but I think I only have 10 more decreases to go, and so that's probably 20 rows, probably one or two more repeats of the pattern. Great intro project for mosaic knitting. If you've never done mosaic knitting, which is a colorwork style where you're only knitting using one color at a time, use slip stitches to kind of create the effects. This would be a great first time project. I've done mosaic knitting before, but this is a really simple pattern, quick. Again, I started this right before I left, and I'm almost finished with it, and have finished socks and finished that started and finished that other cowl in the same period of time. I think for me, it would this is more of a product knit. This is going to be something that I probably do enjoy wearing a lot. I would probably have said this was a bit of a boring project, if not for the color changing aspect of the spin cycle yarn, because you get the pattern like very, very, very quickly. 1-2 repeats of the slip stitch pattern, and you're going to get it. And there's really not much to it otherwise. But the color changing for the spin cycle, kind of like when you're doing self-striping sock yarn, that keeps you interested because you're just like, oh, what's coming next. But again, very quick, sport weight, and a great intro to mosaic knitting if you've never done one before. So I think it's going to use up most of the spin cycle. Oof. Yeah, it is. Oh no, there's some more in there. I just saw a little blob of yarn. I was like, ooh, I may run out of spin cycle, but it's going to use most of that. But I'll have the probably a good chunk of the Treehouse Knits blue to do something else with, and I may use the other colorway, which was the teal and orange for folks who are playing along at home. That was the second most popular one, and I may use that for another. Samantha Garrett, she has another one called flannel something. And once I finish this, if I am enjoying wearing it, maybe I'll use that one for the other one and see how it works. Because again, they're really quick projects, but that won't happen for many months, because as I'm looking up at the at the project bags of future WIPs, I've got a lot of things on the plate to try to get done this year. In terms of other WIPs, I've made some good progress, although I haven't touched it in a couple weeks, on my fruit stripe gum socks. This is a pattern that uses some yarn overs and knit two togethers to create this really fun kind of diamond pattern out of self-striping sock yarn. So this is Woolens and Nosh, Day at the Lake, what's it called? Summer by the Lake remix. So I'm finished with the leg. I did Fish Lips Kiss heel here as well. It had been my first time doing a Fish Lips Kiss heel on those the Jaws socks, and I will say that the first time I did it on those, it was a little not my best work, but by the time I got to the third heel in the last month, this one turned out really nicely. So I'm not going to do the patterning on the foot because you're not going to see it, and it's as cool as it looks. I will say, for me on 9-inch circulars, it's a little fatiguing in terms of doing all those knit two togethers, but I'm loving the way that these turned out, and these will just kind of, in fact, they're going to probably come with me today to the Philharmonic. So while we're sitting waiting for the show to start, I can go round and round and round. That'll be my nice little portable project, because the next one is not portable at all. This is one of my deadline projects, blankets for graduates. A friend of ours graduating from high school this year, and I am making him a blanket. This is the Theo blanket. I think I've shown it before, maybe when it was just a little swatch, but I'll see what I can do here. If I can. Okay. So this is a Tony Lipsy pattern. I'll try to get to the bottom of it here. So starts out down here at the bottom. In the pattern as written, you start out with a square and then you build up on two sides and you end up with a square. I wanted to try to make this more rectangular, more like bed shaped. So as you can see, I started out with a rectangle and then kind of worked it in the pattern from there. This is all done in linen stitch. And I thought it's still feeling a little squarer than I was hoping. So I think I'm not going back. I'm not ripping it. I'm not going to rip it out. It's just going to be what it's going to be. But I think that, if anyone has ever wanted to adjust it, I think you have to really almost exaggerate how rectangular or how the proportions of this initially starting block to really make it that shape. We'll see. And I think part of it will be an exercise in blocking, is that I can block it a little bit longer than it is wide. But this has been great Olympic watching knitting. It's a pretty straightforward two row pattern repeat with this linen stitch. And the only trick I have to do is constantly make sure that I'm doing the colors in the right order, because I have done a whole section and then realized that I put the colors in the wrong order and had to rip a whole section out. It's done on a J hook, and it is being done in Plymouth Encore worsted tweed, which has been a nice yarn to work with. So I'm hoping, obviously I have until graduation. I would, based on the size, I would say I'm probably halfway on that. I'm going to the pattern calls for, I think, four full repeats, but it's just to make like a 5-foot square, I think. So I'm going to keep going until I kind of run out of, get close to yarn, and then I think there's a border that you do around that. So hopefully in the next month or so I can get that done, because I have a second blanket to start. Should be a straightforward and a faster project. I'll talk about it when I get it started, but it's done with bulk. That's worsted. It's done with bulky weight, kind of a color blocked, also a Tony Lipsy pattern. So again, it should, bigger hook, bigger yarn, should go quicker. So I'm fairly confident I'm going to be fine to get those done by May, June, when graduation happens. The only other thing that I was going to show, I do have some other projects. I mentioned the stuff for the self-indulgent knit along, but they haven't seen any action in the last couple weeks, although I worked on one a little bit yesterday. I was relaxing after the Destash. I was hoping to film this yesterday after I finished the last packing up and cleaning up the room where all the Destash stuff happens, but I was just so exhausted. I said all I want to do is like sit and knit and watch some knitting podcasts. So I did just that, and I was able to work on one of those projects. But the other thing I've started is my next charity project. So I finished that cowl, which will probably go to charity. And I've decided this year, I've always just knit hats for like Knit the Rainbow, and I'm trying to branch out a little bit. So cowls, and I was going to try some headbands. So this is a pattern called the Epicia headband. It's in French and English, so I think it's a French designer. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and I'm doing this in Knit Picks Chroma worsted. I think this color is called Go-Go Boots. So it's just a textured, kind of a nice little textured. Started with a provisional cast on. You go all the way around, and then you Kitchener graft it together. But I thought that would be kind of a fun break from doing hats all the time. So we'll see. I've added a bunch of headbands and cowls in worsted weight to my favorites list to sort of put into rotation for charity things, because yeah, just as a bit of a change of pace, try some new patterns. I have a zillion hat patterns that I've done over the years, and it'd be nice to do something differently. So that is it. I did want to mention, so I'm still working on a whip. I'm not going to show it because it's just a strip right now, but it's the basic cardigan that I'm knitting for myself, set-in sleeve cardigan from the Amy Herzog book. Talked about it a number of times. Navy blue because it's me. And several of you, I mentioned last time that I was, one of my struggles with knitting garments is, when you get to that point where you're doing the shaping and it's like, do this at the same time that you're doing this and stand on one foot and every 27th row do this. And thank you all so much for the various tips and tricks that you had for keeping track of, several things of decreasing. I have played around with different things. I used the light bulb stitch markers to keep track of how many times I've done certain things. That was cool. Honestly, I think the one that, and I think it was probably Jimmy from Jimmy Does Knitting that mentioned this, or maybe several people did, that sometimes just the simplest solution is the best, and that is pencil and paper. So I just had, I think it was 2 sets of different decreases I was doing, and I just created little tick boxes, 2 sets of them, and so every time I did one I just kept track of that. And then at the same time I was also using the stitch markers, but that was great. It gave me it made me much more relaxed about the whole process, because I always had that piece of paper, with me while I was working on it. I felt like I was able to keep track of it. Unlike, for whatever reason, with using like Knit Companion, where you can set up all the different counters, but then it's like, oh, do I have my phone with me? I don't know. It just worked. It worked for me. So thank you all for the suggestions on how to make that work. I'm now on the final front panel of that, finished the first front panel of that sweater, working on the second one, and just kind of plugging away. It's flat knitting right now, no increases or decreases, and then I'll have the sleeves to do. So it's probably not going to get finished as soon as I would like it, just because, when someone says, do you want to do a test knit? I say yes, and then I get started on other make-alongs and things like that, and they're more exciting than this back and forth stockinette for this sweater. So also learning something there that for future sweater garment projects, as much as like a basic is what I probably would want to wear, I may need to mix in some more spicy patterns just to keep my interest up, because stockinette back and forth is a little less compelling to pick up when I'm like, oh, I just want to knit for a bit. But as I get closer to the end, I think I'll probably be more excited about that. So that's it in terms of whips. Like I said, there's other stuff going on, but we will show those as more progress gets made on it. Just quickly on acquisitions, I just did my count. I am, even with what I'm about to show you, I'm still negative 84 skeins for the year so far. Thank you, Destash, for good. And some projects, because I took some things out for the projects as well. But I did have some yarn buying this month. First, well, these were actually, it's over there. These were things that were done much earlier, but I just got them this month. And that is I'm going to get it, so just 1 second. I'm back. One of these days, I will actually be able to film an episode where I haven't left something on the other side of the room and have to cut away and come back. So the first things that came, even though I'd bought them a while back, were some stuff from Lolabean Yarn Company. This is Good Trouble. This is a new colorway that she did as a fundraiser, along with Cece's Wool this year, around Rhinebeck, to raise money for Fair Fight, which is Stacey Abrams' organization, and Indivisible. So I got this on the DK base, so it's 100% superwash merino. probably will become a hat, I think. Maybe a single skein. Could make another one of those orbits, which I love to wear. So hold that thought. Could be either one of them. And then this was one of her Black Label collection. I'm so glad I got this one. I got it in Surrey. This is the Bad Bunny inspired colorway, which is it's just DTMF, which is the I should have taken more photos of the name of his album this year, but it's so fun. And I love the way that it's really bright on the merino, but I like how the Surrey kind of like washes it out. So I got to figure out what to do, but I think holding it double with something and making a nice little scarf or something would be a cool way to do that. So that was that. I also, Michelle at Woolens and Nosh had a shop update, and I love some self-striping sock yarn. But these two, just one, this was her Advent color for this year. I didn't do the Advent set, but I just love the bright colors. This is love the Pacific Northwest, and then the other one that I got was Adrift on an Inland Sea. Both of these are on her superwash. I think these are the merino because she's been having trouble getting her Targi base with all the tariff nonsense that's been going on. So those were fun. And then I mentioned I was in when I was in Lisbon, and I got some free time because I had to stick around for a couple of days. Mateus, the knitter, the Portuguese knitter that I followed on Instagram, had recommended this yarn store, and it was relatively close to where I was staying. So I jumped on the subway and went up there to check it out, and it was really a great shop. So it is called Retrosaria. Rosa Pomar, and they had this cool tote bag, so I was able to get that. But one of the things that the owner does is works with Portuguese farmers to try to promote and specific heritage kind of Portuguese breeds of sheep, and make the wool, get the wool, make the yarn, and so she has several of lines that are different weights that are all from these sort of heritage Portuguese breeds. So I got a couple skeins. I didn't want to go crazy, but I think I was inspired by the cowl that I was making, and so this is her Vovo, which I think has something to do with like grandmas. I think I read that. That it maybe means grandma or something. And so this is a sport weight yarn. This is sourced, scoured, milled, and dyed in Portugal. Vovo, grandma, is a versatile and hard-wearing non-superwash yarn made from fine Portuguese wool. So I got two colors of that. And I think I'm going to do another cowl at some point. I know Casey, let me turn these right side up for you. There you go. I know Casey from Casey Knits has several sport weight two-color colorwork cowls. So, so I thought those were nice colors, a little something different for me, not gray and blue. And then she carries a bunch of yarn of her own yarn, but she does carry brands that you would know. I mean, so unlike a lot of European yarn stores that I've been in, they had yarn that was names that I recognize. So they had some Malabrigo, some Lolabean, Jameson of Shetland in there as well. But another one that I found, which is also Portuguese, is this, and it's a name I had heard before, but I'd never seen the yarn, is Mondim. And so this is a non-superwash, self-striping sock yarn. And it actually, maybe I'll have a little bit of, well, these are sport, but they'll all kind of go together. I guess I was in this kind of burgundy blue mood that day. But it is 100% non-superwash wool and fingering weight. So I will probably use a nylon blend for the heels and toes, just because I feel like that's where the most wear is going to be, but it be the first time I've tried some non-superwash for self-striping sock yarn. So that was from the Retrosaria Rosa Pomar in Lisbon. If you're visiting Lisbon by chance, highly recommend that. Matthias had also recommended a bunch of a street somewhere in town where a bunch of the old school kind of haberdashery stores that carry a little bit of yarn, a little bit of notions, a little bit, sewing, and but I didn't make it to that. I did pop in. I had to. One of the meetings was like 40 minutes away from Lisbon by train, and right at the train station there was this other little shop that had that was a cafe and yarn store. And I popped in there and they had a little bit of stuff, but I didn't. Nothing that grabbed me like this other store. But that one, the Rosa Pomar is definitely worth the trip if you're in Lisbon, and you want to go see a local yarn store with a lot of cool local yarn. I think that's it on the only last thing that I have is kind of what is going on with my reading project. Finished in January, early February, the book I was reading in Italian, which was the novel that kind of ends up the Heartstopper series, which is not originally in Italian, but I've been reading that series in Italian just because it's YA and it's relatively straightforward in terms of vocabulary and grammar and stuff like that. So I finished that and then started my 2 books, but I have not made a ton of progress on either one. So for my nonfiction this round, I'm reading this book. It's called The History of Civilizations by Fernand Braudel, a French historian. I've had this book forever. I can't remember who recommended it. Maybe my sister, but I've had it forever and it's just been sitting on the shelf. So I was like, now's the time. Yeah, it's a little dense. It's a little dry so far. I mean, it's kind of a very broad scope of sort of history, kind of breaking it down by civilizations, as the name indicates. And it's one of the holes in my education is sort of world history. So I thought it would be helpful. But it's a little slow going. The novel I'm listening to, since it's audiobook this time, is called The Paying Guest by Sarah Waters, something like that. I'm enjoying that. It's set in sort of post-World War I London, and a mother and her unmarried daughter have had to start taking in boarders because the father died and both the sons died in the war, and they have this big old house and they need to start covering the cost of these sort of young kind of middle-class couple moves into their house, and something strange is going to happen, I'm sure. So that's been good. And for my Italian book, we've started reading this book, which is called L'ultima notte della nostra vita. It is, again, not an Italian book, but it's a translation. The English title is They Both Die at the End, Adam Silvera. But it's a really interesting premise, again, kind of YA book, but there's a service called Deathcast that basically calls you 24 hours before you are going to die and lets you know that you have 24 hours to live. And then there's another service, and it's sort of set in kind of a different present. It's not in the future. This thing called Final Friends, or Your Last Friend. It's an app that you can meet other people who are on their last night, and so these 2 kids, they're both like 17, 18, get the call, and they meet each other on this app, and they're just spending their final night in New York City. And I'm kind of early days, so I don't know. They've just met in the book. So, but it's a cool concept, and it got a lot of awards when it came out. I think there's been like 2 more in the series. There's like a prequel and a sequel that came out of it. So we'll see if I go down that path. But as an intermediate Italian book, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. There's not a ton of unfamiliar stuff. There always will be, but it's a good level for me. So that's it. Olympics end tonight, so I don't know what we're going to do after that. But thank you all for spending some time with me. It may only be a couple weeks before I get the next one out because I'm really trying to do these at the beginning of the month. But thanks for taking some time out today. If you've enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, share with a friend. We've had a little bump up in subscribers the last few weeks, so that is fantastic. I appreciate it. And again, if you see something going on out there in terms of people using crafting to do a little bit of good in the world, please shoot me a line so I can share it with everyone. And I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.